everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. In this video, I want to do a virtual tour of the temple at the time of Christ and Jerusalem a little bit as well. So I happened upon this. It's actually an app. You can get it for your tablet, your phone. There's also a desktop version, which is the one that I'm using. It's put out by BYU, and it is rather interesting. It's kind of basic. It gives you some of the main details about the temple. You can do a virtual walk around, and then you can go to all these like different viewpoints around the temple and Jerusalem. So I thought it'd be fun to do that. Okay. And then also, I have pulled up. Okay. So there's this article that I also came across a while ago called Jesus and the Temple by D. Kelly Ogden. And he goes through and he kind of explains everything in detail, everything about the temple. Who is D. Kelly Ogden? Well, on Deseret Book, it says he's a professor of ancient scripture at BYU. His doctoral work focused on the Hebrew language and historical geography of biblical lands, on and on and on. So he's a scholar, and he knows about these things enough to do an article for the Ensign. And so, excuse me, I wanted to kind of go through this as well. I also have tabs pulled up here from the Temple Institute. This is the group that in Judaism, as of right now, if they got the go ahead to build the temple, the third temple, these are the guys that have everything prepared. They have all the instruments made for the temple. They have the clothing prepared. Here you can see the high priest's clothing, the breastplate with the 12 stones, gemstones that represent the 12 tribes of Israel. We've looked at this site a number of times, and it turns out that they also have kind of a guide to the temple. So they have things here that don't show up in the app by BYU. And some things are not mentioned, I don't think, in this article either. So this is going to be fun. It's probably going to be pretty extensive, but let me just give you kind of a idea of what you can do on this. So let's go back to the app. Okay. So you can either do City of Jerusalem or Temple Mount, right? If you do Temple Mount, it takes you to a little thing where it's like a walkthrough. So, oh, and by the way, I should say this first. Let me go back here. Okay, so if you're doing it on your desktop, this is the website right here. It's called virtualscriptures.org. Okay, Virtual New Testament. That's the title here once you get on the page. And you can find this in the App Store. So it's in the Apple App Store as well as the Google App Store. But you can also get it for Windows and for Mac. If you saw my previous video, I recommended that you, if you're doing this for Windows, I had a problem with trying to get it using Google Chrome. So maybe try another browser like Firefox or Microsoft Edge. If it doesn't work, when you try and do it with Chrome. So just try a different browser if it doesn't work. And then it'll be on your computer. It'll download. Okay. So let's get back here. So on desktop, what you do is you just, you click where you want to go, and then it goes to that point. Okay. So right here, we're in the court of the women. It says the court of the women was the outer forecourt of the temple in Jerusalem, in which women were permitted to enter. It was also known as the middle court, as it was located between the court of the Gentiles, a place that functioned primarily as a marketplace, and the court of the Israelites, an area exclusive only to Jewish men. So you can do this. You can kind of explore in. I think I actually want to start by going back here. Okay. Let's see. I'll go back here, go to City of Jerusalem. All right. You can pick one of these vantage points. Okay. And then you can click on, so if there's like an eye icon, then you can go over to that point of view. It'll zoom you over there and you can look around. There's the temple. Okay, I'm going to go back to this one though, the one that's just like right above the temple. So as I'm sure most of you know, the temple faces, or it faced, east. So you look over here and there's the Mount of Olives right here. The Garden of Gethsemane is down in this area. Nowadays, BYU Jerusalem roughly is, I think it might be around this area right here. Maybe probably like right there. So you can see that the BYU Jerusalem Center has a pretty prominent spot. It's actually on Mount Scopus, but it's part of the same ridge as the Mount of Olives. So, and we know that this is where this is where he ascended, and this is where he's going to return when he comes to the Jews, is the Mount of Olives. He's going to come here. The mountain is going to cleave in twain. It's going to, split into two. And it's supposed to be a way for the Jews and the city to escape, okay, as Christ is essentially saving them, okay? So let's take a look at this view. Let's go over here. And here you can see the temple on the east side. Down right here, this is the Golden Gate. It's also known as the Shushan Gate. And I did some videos comparing the church symbol. Okay, you know that the church symbol is the Christus, and then there's an arch, which is supposed to represent the tomb. But I noticed that it actually perfectly fits within the Golden Gate. So you'll have to go back, do a search on my channel for Golden Gate, and it'll come up. But we've kind of noticed that before. And different traditions hold that this is the gate that the Messiah would come to. Both the Jews believing that the Moshiach, their Messiah, would come through this gate. And then other Christians believe that Christ would come through this gate as well during the second coming. Okay, so let's go back over here. Now, this is constructed according to the view that the temple actually was right here on the Temple Mount. There is another view out there. I don't really know what to think as of right now. I could see, okay, so the other view maintains that what you see right here, this whole area, was not actually where the temple was, that this was actually a Roman fort, that this was the Roman fortress Antonia. In this model, and this is the one that the Jews currently accept, this right here, this thing that looks like a castle, that's the fortress Antonia. It was the Roman fortress, okay? And it was to house a Roman division, which is a lot of people. And that's the one problem that I have accepting that the Temple Mount and this whole thing was for the temple, is that, to me, and I want to do a future video. I'm not trying to like prove a point where the temple actually was, but the size of this complex right here looks like about the right size for a Roman division. Okay, because basically, just like nowadays, fortresses, especially larger ones, they're basically little cities. You go to any army post or Air Force base or any military installation, it's essentially a small little city. You have restaurants, you have barracks, you have, in modern days, we have the motor pool, which is where you have all the vehicles. In ancient days, I guess you'd probably have stables and probably training areas and stuff like that. And when you look at this little dinky thing over here, it doesn't look big enough to me to be, to house an entire Roman division. I think it's a division. I can't remember if it's a division, a legion, but a sizable military unit. Okay. So here it has like a little depiction of like Roman guards up here in the buttresses, standing guard overlooking the temple. So whatever, I'm not pushing any view, but just so you know, the other view is that this would have been the Fortress Antonia. And then over here on the south side, in what, like this area right here, it's known as the city of David, that the temple was actually down here, and the Roman fortress would have been this entire thing, overlooking the temple down here. So you see what I mean? So anyway, okay, so those are some of the basics. So Fortress Antonia, here's the temple, here's the court of the women right here. When you click on this, this is called the Soreg. You see this like line right here. Let's actually, well, first let's read it. Okay, so the Soreg. A latticed railing separating the court of the Gentiles from the inner courts of the temple. Warnings were placed at 13 points in the Soreg to discourage any Gentiles from entering the sacred places within. The inscriptions made it clear that any violators would be responsible for their own death if they passed that point. Okay, so let's go to the Temple Mount view, and let's walk to one of those just so you can get like a better view. And I don't know if this is where they get the idea where there's a lot of Jews that ascend the Temple Mount. They're allowed to do it during certain times during the day and certain days during the week. And basically, it's just like a walk around on a predetermined path, just a walk around the temple with a police escort. It's not really a tour. It's just a walk around the Temple Mount. And you would think, oh, yeah, Jews would want to go there, you know, and they do. But there's some rabbis that have argued that you shouldn't go up there because you might accidentally tread on holy ground, somewhere that you're not supposed to be, because even though the temple's not constructed right now, the third temple, these areas are still sacred. So, for example, now I don't know if it would include this area right here, or if it would just be like in the temple itself. Like you don't want to be where only the priests could be. But anyway, going back to this, here's the Soreg, and it's this railing right here that you can see. So if you're a Gentile, you needed to be over here on this side, and you should not go through here if you're a Gentile. Oh, and it looks like they did a little recreation here of the sign, the warning not to go there. That looks like Greek to me right there. Do they have another language over here? Not sure. Not entirely sure. But okay. So, and then the pinnacle of the temple, you know, the pinnacle of the temple that's spoken about when Christ was being tempted by Satan. Where's the pinnacle of the temple? Well, according to this, their scholarly guess is that this area up here, this entire thing, I'm gonna have to read it, but I was kind of skimming through, and this entire structure right here, or at least this upper level, is called Herod's Basilica. But anyway, the pinnacle of the temple would be like this corner right here. Pinnacle of the temple. The southeast corner of the temple structure overlooks the deep Kidron Valley. That's the valley between the temple and the Mount of Olives. The southwest corner sits high above the large courtyard on the south and the busy market area on the west. It was on one of these pinnacles that Satan tempted Jesus, quote, "If thou be the Son of God, cast thyself down from hence, for it is written, he shall give his angels charge over thee to keep thee. And Jesus answering said unto him, it is said, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God." Luke chapter 4, verses 9 through 10 and verse 12. Okay. So that is, that's currently viewed as what the pinnacle of the temple was. Maybe it was that one. Maybe it was the one over on the other side. Okay. Okay. So let's maybe go back out. Let's go over here. Okay. Here you see the court of the women directly below. And then what's that? Redemption of the firstborn. Okay. So this whole court is the court of the women. And then it looks like as part of the court of the women, or just kind of like up in this area, it says redemption of the firstborn. Early Old Testament Hebrews believed that their firstborn male child belonged to God and must be dedicated to the Lord in the temple following his birth. The traditional law required non-Levites, okay, to pay a price of 5 shekels to be given in support of the priesthood in performing their priestly service to God. The ceremony consisted of a formal presentation of the child to the priest, followed by 2 prayers, the first for the law of redemption and the second for the gift of the firstborn. So I'm assuming, and it has kind of like a little picture here, that this is probably where Christ was, presented at the temple. You know that story. He was presented and Zechariah was there. Okay. Over here, we should probably do the ground view to go in here. So let's do that. Okay, Temple Mount. Okay, we'll go inside. So we're in the court of the women. Okay, now we're approaching this entrance right here, this gate. Let's go up the steps. Okay, stop. I wish it was like controlled by the arrow keys, but it's not. So we'll have to read the article, but from what I saw, this narrow area right here, where you see these stones, these gray stones, this is the court of the Israelites, and then the court of the priests is like beyond that. These wooden things over here for slaughtering. You can see, it's a little gruesome. Okay, court of the priest. In the Old Testament, priests were commanded to kill sacrificial animals directly north of the altar in the tabernacle. In Herod's temple, the animals were likewise killed in the north area of the altar. So, again, you look this way, you're facing east, and therefore this right here is the north side, and then the south side, there's the altar right there. Altar of sacrifice. The eastern part of this enclosure was called the court of the priests, and it stood, and in it stood the huge altar of burnt offering and the laver for the priestly purifications. And here's the laver right here. This is what it looked with Herod's temple, although with Solomon's temple, and I believe, let's switch back over. I believe also with the tabernacle, it was different. Let's see. Here's a different article in here's a different article. This is a 2018 Ensign article, and this one's talking about the tabernacle. So okay, so it looks like the laver of water was a lot smaller actually for the tabernacle, which makes sense. It makes sense because it's a portable temple, so I guess it couldn't be a huge thing. The altar also looks much, much smaller. Let's blow this picture up a little bit. Let's see if we can zoom in. Yeah, look at the size of that altar. It's tiny compared to Herod's temple. And it makes sense. It's a portable temple. Everything's got to be smaller. Okay. Let's see. There, okay, inner courts. Let's pull this up. Now we're looking at the Temple Institute. Let's look at the court of Israel. Yeah, let's look at the court of Israel. Open this up. Okay, oops. Keeps asking me to subscribe. Sorry, I didn't have this part prepared. Yeah, here it is right here. There's the court of the priests, and it looks like this right here is the court of the court of Israel. The main entrance to the court of Israel was through the Nicanor gate, which is that like arched gate that we just walked through. The platform was located at the edge of the court of Israel, upon which the Levites would stand and sing. Representatives of the tribes of Israel would also stand in the court of Israel to witness the daily Tamid offerings. Israelites were permitted entry for prayer and prostration. The court of Israel measured 135 by 11 cubits. It was situated in the east section of the Holy Court. Okay, the east section of the Holy Court. So let's go back here. This is the Holy Court. This is the priest court. So yeah, it's basically, I think it says right here, like where where these steps are. Let's go back. Okay. The court of Israel, whose level of sanctity was higher than that of the women's court, was defined as having the holiness of, quote, the camp of the divine presence. Impure individuals, as well as those who needed to bring an offering to complete the process of their purification, but had not yet done so, were forbidden entry. One impure from exposure to the dead was permitted entry to the Temple Mount, but was denied entry to the court of Israel. An individual who intentionally entered the court of Israel while in a state of impurity was liable to death by heavenly decree. If he entered unintentionally, he was required to bring a sin offering. The bottom right picture depicts Levites having picked up their instruments at the chamber of musical instruments, heading toward the court of Israel, where they would supply musical accompaniment to the daily Tamid service. And I just saw a picture of them doing that. Here, right here, let me zoom in. See, they're like cymbals and trumpets and harps. So, yeah, so that's interesting. Okay. How about we go back here? Oops. Okay. Now, one thing I didn't know is that you have these two. See, I know that there were like two pillars, at least like with Solomon's temple, there were two pillars. I don't know if these are the pillars right here that they're talking about, because there's these two and they're both wrapped in some kind of like grape decoration. What, honey?
No, I just said grapevine.
Yeah, grapevine. Anyway, and I also did not know that this first veil right here, it's weird because it has like a depiction of a volcano. Here, let me back up. It has a depiction of a volcano right here, and then a gigantic sun, and then stars in the top right part of it. So that's, I didn't know. Let's go in here. Okay, now we're in the sanctuary, or the holy place. I've heard it called both. There you can see the menorah, and then there's the incense table or altar, and then here's the table for the shewbread, right? And again, they have these things already ready to go for the third temple if that ever happens. Let's take a look at some of those. So here's the table. It looks different in this picture compared to what we were just looking at, but here's the golden table of the showbread. And what these are, you'll notice that there's 6, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for each of these. These are holders for the bread. So you put the bread right here and it holds it. So they have that ready to go. And what the heck? Sorry, let me pull that back up. They have that. They also have the menorah. Well, they have the Ark of the Covenant. Here's the Ark of the Covenant, which is interesting because, like, I don't know their their rationale, because my understanding is that the Ark of the Covenant had been lost between the first Solomon's temple and second the Herodian temple. So why, if they're doing it right now for the third temple, why did they not do it for this? So in other words, like if I were to talk to a rabbi right now, I'd be like, well, if they weren't able to make one for the second temple, why would you be able to do it now? Does it have to be by revelation? Does there have to be a prophet that gives the go ahead? Like, why are you doing it now, but they didn't do it for the second temple? So I don't know. Okay, let's go back out of this. Let's find the menorah. Okay, here's the menorah. And it's gigantic. It's really heavy. The golden menorah, described in great detail in Exodus 25 verses 31 to 40, stands along the southern side of the Kodesh sanctuary. That's the room that we're in right now. The 7 lamps of the menorah are kindled every day by a Kohen, which is a priest, as part of the daily Tamid service. Okay. So how about we go back? And then the other thing that I don't really know or understand is the way that they have it depicted in this virtual tour. You have these lions down here. There's 4 lions on the veil. And then at the very top, you have some kind of bird. I don't know if it's an eagle. On the sides here, there's like these, not paintings, but some kind of artwork of what looks like a bird of some kind. I don't know if it's an eagle. Then there's a lion, and then there's what looks like an oxen right there. Okay, because let's go back here again, and here in this Ensign article where it's talking about the tabernacle, and it was always my understanding that it was cherubim that were on the veil, right? Because they basically represent the cherubim that guard the way of the tree of life, right? So that you can't go and partake of the tree of life. Because basically the Holy of Holies, it represents the presence of God. It represents the Garden of Eden. It represents, being in the presence of God. And so it's being protected by cherubim. And so that's why they have that embroidered on the veils. So I don't really understand what's going on here, but maybe we'll find out, because there's a lot that I haven't read yet. But let's go inside here. Oh yeah, you have to go around the side. And then you come in here. Now remember, this is the temple at the time of Christ. This is the second temple. So there's no Ark of the Covenant in here. There's this large, stone kind of thing. And we'll get an explanation for that in just a little bit. But basically just a big, giant cube of a room. Mostly a cube. Okay. So let's go back out. Let's go back out here. In fact, let's do this view of the temple. And I want to read some of this article now. Okay. So Jesus in the Temple by D. Kelly Ogden. What was Herod's temple like during the Lord's life? A look at the temple from the pinnacle to the holy place. Okay. No single place in all the world was holier to Jews and Christians at the time of Jesus than the Temple Mount. It was known as Har Habayit, or the mountain of the house, or, for the house of God, the mountain of the house. On this sacred parcel of ground, the God of all creation had conversed with his prophets and priests, and on it a temple had been built to which he could come, and in which his glory could dwell. And then here's a depiction of it. Okay. Here you can see the same things. The court of the women is this big area right here. Then here's the inner court. And then there's these different gates, which I want to read. I want to read about the different gates because there's gates like over here on the side of the temple. Okay. And then here's the court of the Gentiles. Right here, it looks like they have a different depiction of the Soreg. Remember that railway that the Gentiles are not supposed to pass? Like in this depiction, it's a lot closer to the temple, but anyway. And then that structure that we were talking about where the pinnacle of the temple is over here, right next to Herod's basilica. Okay. So continuing on. Of course, God was not and is not limited to a building made by man. Mountains of God, such as Mount Sinai and the high mountains to which the brother of Jared, Nephi, and John the Revelator were caught away by the Spirit, have often been the settings for temple-like experiences. The Savior himself sometimes, quote, went up to a mountain apart to pray. Which that's an interesting thought, right? That maybe at certain times it was a holier place to go than the current temple. In the state of wickedness that Israel was in at that time, apostasy was kind of already taking a hold of the people of Israel. So maybe at certain times that was a better place to go, was simply to a mountain and using the mountain for temple experiences. So he took Peter, James, and John to an high mountain apart and was there glorified and transfigured before them. There they received the keys of the kingdom and heard the Father himself bearing witness of his Son. After the resurrection, the Savior gave his final charge and instructions to the 11 apostles in a mountain where Jesus had appointed them. These mountains were made holy by the divine presence of God. So I find that interesting. The Savior in the temple. But what of the temple itself during Jesus' day? How did Jesus, the very Jehovah in whose name it had been built and to whom its sacrifices had been offered, regard the temple built by Herod? Although the architectural beauty of Herod's temple made it one of the wonders of the ancient world, it had less of the hallowed and spiritual atmosphere that had infused the tabernacle and Solomon's temple. The Ark of the Covenant, mercy seat, cherubim, and other holy objects were not there. Okay, so the Ark of the Covenant was not there. The Urim and Thummim, which provided revelatory contact with God, was not there. And the Shekinah, which is the divine presence, was absent. I've heard that word before recently, Shekinah. I think I heard it while I was watching one of the services, because sometimes I watch Jewish Sabbath day services or during the holy days, the feast days. So I think I heard that one time. Anyway, yet Herod's temple was a place of revelation, as seen in the experience of Zacharias. See Luke chapter 1. And there is evidence in word and deed that Jesus considered the temple to be the legitimate sanctuary of the true God. Indeed, Jesus called it, quote, my Father's house and my house. The Savior's life from beginning to end was bound to the temple. When Mary had fulfilled the 40-day ritual of purification after giving birth, she and Joseph took the infant Jesus to the temple in Jerusalem for the ceremonial redemption of the firstborn. 12 years later, Mary and Joseph found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the doctors, and they were hearing him and asking him questions. Near the commencement of the Savior's ministry, Jesus was taken up into the holy city, and the Spirit setteth him on the pinnacle of the temple. So we already saw that. Where Satan made a vain effort to tempt him during the 3 years that followed. Jesus was frequently in the temple courts and in the temple, that is, in various structures or colonnades of the inner temple, though apparently not in the holy place itself, which is so that isn't that like kind of shocking? You know, here you finally had the Savior. And he was born, the Messiah was there, and he didn't go into where if all of Israel had recognized him and accepted him, he absolutely, I imagine, would have gone into the holy place, and most likely into the Holy of Holies, I would think, you know, but we don't have record of him doing that. And I think that we can be pretty sure that he never did go in there, but he had every right to. I mean, this room right here, this is the presence of God. Only the high priest could come in here. I believe just one day a year on Yom Kippur, or the Day of Atonement. Whereas and he was a type of Christ himself, right? It was a type. Whereas you had the actual Messiah, Christ, that was actually there at the time, and he easily could have come in here had he wanted to. So I don't know. It's just it's shocking to me. It's shocking. Okay, let's go back. Keep reading. Quote, the blind and the lame came to him in the temple, and he healed them. That's in Matthew 21, chapter 21. John chapter 7. About the midst of the feast, Jesus went up into the temple and taught. John 8, and early in the morning he came again into the temple, and all the people came unto him, and he sat down and taught them. Luke chapter 19, he taught daily in the temple. Luke chapter 21, and if I remember right, that's like a big second coming chapter. All the people came early in the morning to him in the temple to hear him. John chapter 18, I spake openly to the world. I ever taught in the synagogue and in the temple, whither the Jews always resort, and in secret have I said nothing. Matthew 21, on at least one occasion, people in the temple cried to him in praise, saying, Hosanna to the Son of David. And no, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to talk about it later in this article, but I wonder where all that was taking place, because it would, I doubt that it would have been here where the priests were doing all this, right? If we come over here to the court of the women, I don't know. There's a lot of space here. Sorry, I don't mean to sound like ignorant, but yeah, there's a lot of space there. Here's a colonnade right here. When you have a row of columns, it's called a colonnade. If it's a row of arches, it's an arcade. And then you come out here. I mean, he could have even maybe been teaching out here. Not in the court of the Gentiles, most likely, but maybe over here on the steps. I don't know. We'll see if we can find anything else out from the article. Jesus was protective of the sanctuary of his father's house. Sanctity of his father's house. In the very early days of his ministry, he cleansed the temple court of the merchandisers and money changers. Then during his final week in mortality, he again, quote, went into the temple of God, cast out all them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers. As he taught, Jesus made figurative use of the temple to foreshadow his death and resurrection. Quote, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. Then said the Jews, 46 years was this temple in building, and wilt thou rear it up in 3 days? But he spake of the temple of his body. At Jesus' death, the veil of the temple, most sacred chamber, the Holy of Holies, was rent in twain from top to bottom. So how about we just go over there really quick? Because you'll notice that this veil, let's just walk over to it. Sorry, I can only walk so fast in this virtual environment. And it's mostly based on my ability to click and how fast it'll let me go. So this partition or this veil is already two pieces, as you can see. So like when you walk through here, you go right through the middle. But this one, okay, and I believe that it was always like this all the way until the atonement. Was always just like one solid piece. So in other words, it like communicates the idea that you don't go through this. It's not like this one where priests could come through very easily. No, this one you don't go through, just the high priest in just during that one day of the year. And I assume that he probably came around the side like this because that just makes sense. And then here in this simulation, that's also how you get in here, is you have to go through the side. It won't let you go through. It just like stops you when you try and go through the center. So I think they did that on purpose. So anyway, so yeah, the atonement happened. He was crucified, and then there's a big tear that came down through the middle, which of course we know represents now that he's performed the atonement. Now we can all repent. We can make covenants, and we, through Christ and because of Christ, we ourselves are able to, after this life, go through the veil and go back into the presence of God, right? So, okay, let's go back to the article. At Jesus' death, the veil of the temple's most sacred chamber, the Holy of Holies, was rent in twain from top to bottom. For generations, only the high priest had been permitted to pass through the veil and enter the symbolic presence of God. And even he had the privilege only once a year. But through his death, Jesus rent that partition, signifying, among other things, that all people could reach God's presence. Now that had happened. Although the temple had been built by a godless king and was in the hands of priests who had strayed from the true knowledge of Jehovah, Jesus reverenced it and respected it. But he also acknowledged its position in relation to the true Lord of the temple. Quote, "I say unto you," he told the Pharisees, "that in this place there is one greater than the temple." Okay, the temple at the time of Jesus. It was said that whoever had not seen the temple of Herod had never seen a beautiful building. And judging by this 3D model, this simulation here, it is kind of spectacular. Let's go back to this view where we're hovering above the temple. If this is like really what it looked like, I mean, because it looks like it has gold plating on the front of it right here. That is pretty darn incredible. And then if you just take in the size, so if this area was not the Fortress Antonia, then this was really quite a large area, and just all the columns all over the place, and even just like the size of it, because my gosh, when you go back to this view, let's go back inside. I mean, even just like out here, this like outer wall, it's huge. And then you come in here. I don't know how many stories that would be, but I don't know. For ancient times, I think that's pretty large. Maybe some other day I'll get the exact specifications and how it compares. Maybe somebody's made some kind of like comparison chart comparing ancient structures to each other, but it looks pretty darn tall. I don't know how many stories it would be, but let's just roughly say, I don't know, maybe somewhere between 15 to 20 stories, maybe. I don't know. What do you guys think? If you were to guess, or if you know, put it in the comments below. How many stories do you think that this is? But this must have been quite the thing to behold, when you're there in person, with all that gold. It's beautiful. It'd be nice to see it at this time of day when the sun is coming up in the morning and it's shining directly on the front facade of the temple. And these columns are just gigantic. And it makes me wonder when they destroyed the temple, either one of them, either Solomon's temple or the Herodian temple, this looks like it'd be kind of hard to destroy if you don't have modern technology. Now, I know that you can probably just use like battering rams, but given the fact that this is like mostly stone, the entire thing, it seems like that's what you would have to do. Maybe use catapults, battering rams. I don't know, but you can't just like burn this down. Stones don't burn, right? Stones don't burn. So, but gosh, just look like right here. Look how tall it is when you like look straight up. Okay, let's get back to the other window here. Okay, no other temple complex in the Greco-Roman world compared with its expansiveness and magnificence. 1,000 priests trained as masons helped to build the holiest parts of the temple. 10,000 workmen using 1,000 wagons to transport materials constructed the rest of the building. That would suck. The temple proper took 1.5 years to build. That's it. Like, it seems like it would take longer than that. With how big it is, that's all it took. The courtyards and porticos were under construction for 8 years. Okay. Additional work and refinements on the temple continued until 64 AD, only 6 years before the temple was destroyed by the army of Titus. Herod nearly doubled the size of the Temple Mount from what it was during the period of Solomon, making it in Jesus' day nearly 40 acres. In comparison, Temple Square in Salt Lake City covers 10 acres. Okay, so it's like 4 times the size of Temple Square. Although if you include the church office building area, well, that would be more like, I guess, 20 acres because it's about the same size. So it's almost like let's pull it up on the map. Let's see. Salt Lake Temple. Let's look at it. Okay, it's right there. Let's go to the satellite view. Yeah, so basically these city blocks here, if they're 10 acres each, it'd be like if you took this entire block that has the church office building, the Joseph Smith Memorial Building and all that, Temple Square, the conference center, and then this block right here where you have the church history library and some other stuff. It'd be like this size. It'd be like that size. That's pretty big. Okay. So, okay. Temple Square in Salt Lake City covers 10 acres. The famous Forum in Rome was only 20 acres. And the largest temple complex in the world, Karnak in Upper Egypt, was 2,000 years in the building, is 60 acres, only a third larger than Herod's Temple Mount. 32 American football fields would fit on the Temple Mount. Solomon's stables. Okay. To expand the temple, Herod had to extend the platform of the Temple Mount. To the north and west, he had his workmen build an earth fill to support the floor. But underneath the floor of the southern portion of the temple courtyard are hollow chambers, vaults supported by rows of arched colonnades. Okay, so he extended it to the north and west. So let's look at this. Let's see what it's talking about. Let's come back here. We'll have to look at the bird's eye view. So here's north right here. North and west. So he extended it up this way. Is that what it's saying? And then let me just read it. Okay, but underneath the floor of the southern portion of the temple courtyard are hollow chambers. So over here on this side, let's look at this point of view. Okay, so here's the south side of the temple. I think that this is the area in question. So we're talking about quote unquote Solomon's stables. So later, Crusaders used these large columned chambers for stabling their horses. Although Herod constructed them, they are erroneously called Solomon's stables. So I guess you might as well call them Herod's stables. So somewhere here, I don't know if it's like talking about this area right here. I wonder if there's like a better view. I wish you could just kind of like fly around here. See what this view looks like. Okay, so I don't know. Maybe it's talking about this structure, whatever this is right here. Let's go back to this view. Because it looks like there's, an entrance there. It's some kind of building. It looks like it maybe goes underneath. So whatever. Okay, the pinnacle of the temple area. Moving on. Let's go up here. Here's the fortress Antonia. There's the temple. Let's go over here. Okay, so the pinnacle of the temple, this one right here. That's the pinnacle of the temple. Okay, what does it say? Here, let me click off of that. The entire temple area was enclosed by a high retaining wall. Since the southwestern corner of the wall provides the best angle for looking over the city, a few recent researchers believe this is the pinnacle of the temple where Jesus was tempted. In the ruins of that corner, researchers discovered a carved platform stone with a Hebrew inscription indicating that this is where a herald would stand to blow the shofar, signaling the advent of holy days. Now, see, on here on the BYU, and I think that this is more updated than this article. This article is 1991, but I clicked on this earlier. If you go to the opposite, quote unquote, pinnacle over here, it says the Trumpeter's Tower, the Southwest Tower. Is that the one I was talking about? Since the southwestern corner. Oh, okay, no. No. So he's talking about over here, but in the BYU model, it's saying that over here is the pinnacle of the temple. So I don't know if like something changed their mind to where they think that this most likely was where Christ was. But according to the article, it's saying probably over here at the Trumpeter area. Let's hop over there. You see right here below us. Okay, the southwest tower of the Temple Mount was the last tower erected above the top of the Pastaphoria, special rooms for priests. Daily, one of the priests stood and gave a signal beforehand with a trumpet at the beginning of every seventh day in the evening twilight, and also in the evening when the day was finished, as giving notice to the people when they were to leave off work and when they were to go to work again. Okay. So what's this here? Oh, that's the Soreg. Okay. And see, this is what he's talking about. If you were over here at this tower, if this is the pinnacle, then yeah, it has like the best view of all of Jerusalem. You see that? It'd be like in view of everybody. Everybody could like basically see this tower. Yeah, it like looks over the entire city, essentially. There's the upper city up there, the lower city down there. So I guess that makes sense if it was over here. but for some reason this model it's saying maybe the other corner, although I think it did say that they weren't sure, but possibly. Okay, the southeastern corner is the traditional candidate for the pinnacle of the temple. Oh, okay. So it's talking about both possibilities. The southeastern corner, that's the other one. Let's go back over here. So that's the southwestern, and then this one over here is the southeastern, and he's saying this is the traditional candidate for the pinnacle of the temple. The southeastern corner is the traditional candidate for the temple, or candidate for the pinnacle of the temple. It is the highest point along the whole length of the walls of the Temple Mount, 211 feet or 64 meters. From the top of this point to the bottom of the Kidron Valley was a drop of more than 400 feet. The highest man-made height ever achieved anciently in the Holy Land. The point of Satan's temptation was to entice Jesus into misusing his divine power by throwing himself off the dizzying height and counting on angels to rescue him from the fall. Okay. So, yeah. So I guess there's some that believe it's the southwestern corner, and then the more traditional view is that it's the southeastern. And there's a case to be made for either one of those. So believe what you will, it doesn't really matter. Okay, Holda gates. The main entrance and exit to the Temple Mount were two gates called the Holda gates, leading through the walls of the Temple Mount from the south. Okay, so we got to go south to see those. So that way's east. That way's north. Okay, so we got to turn all the way around and go probably right there. No. There's the upper city. Let's go right there. Well, no, that's way too far. Sorry, this isn't the easiest thing to navigate. Okay, here we go. So here is the south side of the temple. Let's see what this thing here says. Mikvaot. Ritual cleansing was an important part of Jewish worship in Jesus' day. Practicing Jews were required to cleanse themselves in a pool filled with water before or after performing certain rites, to become clean from ritual impurity, or before entering the temple. A ritual bathing pool is a mikveh. The plural is mikvaot. Hundreds of first century mikvaot have been excavated through this region, as well as the Galilean villages. So think a little bit about that. Think about cleansing, washing, when it comes to the temple. And there's, something going on here where they cleanse themselves before they enter in. So it's an interesting idea. But anyway, we're talking about the Holda gates. So the main entrance and exit to the Temple Mount were two gates called the Holda gates, leading through the walls of the Temple Mount from the south. Through the one on the right, a person would enter to perform the holy work in the temple after having gone through ritual washings or cleansings in small pools or fonts just outside the walls. The left gate was the exit from the Temple Mount. Okay, so I'm guessing then that these are the two. This is what they're talking about, the Holda gates. So it said you'd go in on the right on this side and then exit on the left. And that makes sense because you have these stairs right here that seem to be leading up to these two. There are three other ones over here, but I don't know if this has to do with Solomon's stables or this structure right here. But anyway, so if you were going to the temple that day, then you would come over here to the south side and then go through here, through this gate right here. A bit if I'm reading this correctly and identifying this correctly. Nowadays, This portion right here, you see this? This is the Western Wailing Wall. It's over here. Right? Because, see, that's north. Yeah, west. So this right here, when you see the Western Wailing Wall in the news or whatever, that's like over here. But the entrance, if you were to like, if the temple was up and going and everything was the way it was before, you would enter in on the south side. Which, that's kind of interesting because we all know that the land of Israel, it's kind of a mirror image of Salt Lake. And the Great Salt Lake, the Utah Lake corresponds to the Sea of Galilee. There's the two Jordan rivers. Well, it's interesting because now both temples, like if you're looking at this ancient temple, okay, so let's look from this point of view. Both temples face east, so that's not a mirror, right? Because if it was a mirror, then the Salt Lake Temple would be facing west. But it's not. So this one is like facing over this way toward the Dead Sea, which is kind of like southeast of here, like somewhere over here. Whereas the Salt Lake Temple, if it was a perfect mirror, the Salt Lake Temple would be facing in the direction of the Great Salt Lake. So anyway, they both face east, but with this temple, you enter in from the south, but with the Salt Lake Temple, you enter in from the north. So even with that, even though they both face east, even that mirrors, right? So here in Jerusalem, you enter in from the south. Here's the entrance right here. You see the steps. Okay. Then you would come through over here. And but with the Salt Lake Temple, you would enter in from the north. That's interesting. That is interesting. Okay, let's continue on. Let's go back to the article here. Okay, the Susa gate. Okay, now this is the Golden Gate. Okay, the eastern gate of the Temple Mount was called the Susa gate. In fact, let's find it right now. I guess we'll have to go to the Mount of Olives to see it. Okay, so you see this gate right here. Unfortunately, it's in the shadows, but there's this gate right here. Okay, that's the Susa gate. It faced eastward toward Susa, or Shushan, the Persian capital, where parts of the biblical stories of Daniel, Esther, Nehemiah, and others unfolded. So, just so you understand, let's come over here and let's look up. Let's look up Temple Mount. Let's go to the map. Zoom in. Okay. So you see here's the Temple Mount, right? If the temple was there, it would be facing this way. You'd be facing east. So let's go to the political map. And so if you zoom out, okay, like I said, there's the Dead Sea. So it faces east toward the Dead Sea and the Jordan River. But if you zoom out even more, it faces toward Iran. Iran is modern day Persia, essentially. That they refer to themselves as Persian. They have a different language. It's Persian. So that's why it's called the Susa or the Shushan Gate, because it faces the capital of Persia, which is modern day Iran. Okay. So that's what that's talking about. Let's go back and let's look at it, and then I'll keep reading. Okay, it faced eastward toward Susa or Shushan, the Persian capital, where parts of the biblical stories of Daniel, Esther, Nehemiah, and others unfolded. This gate was said to have been lower than the other gates, so that the priests who were sacrificing a red heifer, a symbolic representation of the Redeemer, across the valley on the Mount of Olives, might look directly into the temple. Now, this has actually come up as we've read about the red heifer. They have some candidates, and According to what we've read, they need the red heifer to purify the temple area and also the priests and also all the instruments that are going to be used. So anyway, and so it would be sacrificed over here, I guess, somewhere by the priest, and then they would want it to be in view of the temple. So they would like look through this gate. They would open it so that they could see the temple and sacrifice the red heifer somewhere down here on the lower portion of the Mount of Olives, which I don't know where that would be today because there's a whole bunch of, buildings and churches and all sorts of things over here. But I'm sure that they would make it work somehow. Okay. Solomon's porch. At ground level, on all sides of Herod's temple, were extraordinary colonnaded porticos, also called porches or cloisters, covered walkways with colonnades opening to the inside. Okay, so let's go check that out. For this one, we'll need to go into the temple. I believe that's talking about this right here. These colonnades. Can I walk over there? No? Let's see. Yeah, I think it's talking about this area in here. Okay, so Solomon's porch. Let's read some more. Covered walkways with colonnades opening to the inside. Yeah, so this is on the inside of the temple walls, the Temple Mount walls. So I think that's what that means. And it goes around the entire thing. It's massive. Okay, covered walkways with colonnade. Okay, sorry, I keep reading. Each portico hosted a double row of Corinthian columns. Each column a monolith cut from one block or stone and rising to more than 37 feet. My gosh, where do you find that? How do you do it? How do you make it? That seems impossible. Yeah, here you see the double columns. So you have one that's more toward the inside, one that's more toward the outside, and then you could just like walk in between all of these. I'm pretty sure I remember watching one of the New Testament videos that the church has put out, and Christ is talking to the Pharisees, and it seems like it's in one of these areas. Okay, so that's Solomon's porch. I never knew that until just now, and it's huge. I wonder how long it would take for you to walk around that. It looks like if you come over here to the fortress Antonia, it kind of blocks some of it. So you come to a dead end right here. Let's walk over here to the west side of the temple, past the fortress Antonia. You only have kind of like a partial colonnade over here. In Solomon's porch, this would be within, I guess, the court of the Gentiles, because there's the Soreg right there. So as a Gentile, you could be in that area. There's even more columns over here underneath Herod's basilica, which is this thing up here. This is a really impressive structure for ancient times. I can't believe that they were able to build all this. Okay, let's continue. So, okay, the porticos inside Herod's newly positioned north, west, and south walls were unique to Herod's temple. Okay, so the porticos on the north. Okay. However, he built up the eastern portico in the same spot as that of Solomon's temple. This east portico, called Solomon's porch, is possibly where 12-year-old Jesus conversed with the learned rabbis. Okay, so let's walk over there. So Okay, so there's the temple. See, it's facing east. And it's saying that that is like the original Solomon's porch. So let's walk over there. Let's go over here. Now, I'm going to show you this in a little while, but you have these gates right here where you would go into the temple. One of them is like the women's gate. One of them is, it's like the water gate. One is the singing gate. There's like different gates. So it seems that these are the gates that you would use to enter the temple. But we'll go into that in a little bit. So over here on the east side, which would be in front of the temple, this is what he's guessing, or that they're guessing is the area where Jesus would be talking to the scribes, or the rabbis. Okay, this eastern portico, called Solomon's Porch, is possibly where 12-year-old Jesus conversed with the learned scribes. Or, sorry, rabbis. I keep wanting to say scribes. Here, the Savior later walked and taught at the Feast of Dedication, or Hanukkah, and testified that he was God's son. The Jews tried to stone him here on that occasion. This is also where Peter and John, after performing a miracle at the gate of the temple, drew a large crowd and preached, calling the people to repentance for denying and killing the Holy One. Here, they were arrested by temple police and Sanhedrin officials. And then here's a black and white picture of it. But we got something better. We're actually here in cyberspace, though. Okay, so that makes sense. It seems like it'd be kind of a prominent area, right, of the temple. Now, the thing I don't understand, okay, the Shushan gate, according to what we read, it should be basically right here so that you could see to the Mount of Olives. They could look through here to the temple. So that's not depicted here. I don't know if that was intentional, if that was a mistake. This whole thing seems pretty thorough, so I doubt that it's a mistake, but I don't understand that discrepancy, but whatever. Okay. All right, let's read on. Okay, Herod's Basilica. The southern portico, so that's going to be over here. So that over here is east, over here is south, and then that's Herod's Basilica up here. And so therefore underneath it would be the portico with all those columns. Okay, Herod's Basilica. The southern portico, grander than the others, is often called Herod's Basilica. The word basilica comes from the Greek word basileus, king. Therefore, this was considered to be a royal portico. Oh, okay, it was royal. This rectangular public hall with colonnaded aisles had a total of 162 Corinthian columns. At its foot were ramps leading onto the temple courtyard from the south. Ramps. Where? Oh, I think I know what it's talking about. Hold on. You got to go through here, through the Soreg, and if I can get through it, I think it's talking about this, maybe. That is quite the ramp, but it goes down, and it seems like his basilica is up there. So I don't really understand, but whatever. At its foot were ramps leading onto the temple courtyard from the south. Oh, so it's not necessarily from the basilica itself, but this leads to the south side of the temple to the outside. So these are the ramps. Okay. Court of the Gentiles. Solomon's Porch, Herod's Basilica, and the other cloisters or porticos along the walls on the ground floor of the temple complex opened onto the Court of the Gentiles, so named because non-Jews were allowed to enter. This is where people gathered to buy and sell oxen, sheep, and doves for use in the temple sacrifice, and where money changers busily changed currency, where pagan symbols and likenesses of political rulers into temple coinage. Non-Jews were allowed to enter this far into the Temple Mount, just as members of other faiths are allowed onto Temple Square in Salt Lake City. Of course, the court of the Gentiles is where Jesus cast out the merchants and the money changers. So, okay, and there is a lot of space here. So you could see where maybe you would like rent a spot, or I don't know I don't know how it would work, but I could see a bunch of like booths or tables or little penned areas for animals. There is quite a lot of space, both on this side and on the other side. Surrounding the temple proper, separating it from the court of the Gentiles, was a balustrade, Soreg in Hebrew, a stone railing about 4.5 feet high, with posted inscriptions in Greek and Latin warning Gentiles not to pass within. One of these inscriptions, found in 1935 just outside the Lion's Gate of the Old City, is now on display in the Rockefeller Archaeological Museum. It reads, "No Gentile shall enter inward of the partition and barrier surrounding the temple, and whosoever is caught shall be responsible to himself for his subsequent death." Yikes. Yeah, and of course, right. I wonder if we can see that. Let's do Rockefeller Archaeological Museum, Lions Gate sign. I wonder if that'll pull up. Let's see. Herod's Temple. Oh wait. Temple warning inscription. Okay. Oh, look, there it is. There it is. In stone. Wow. And that actually, I saw a part of it that looked familiar. Let's go over here. Let's take a look at it. See down here where it says, where it looks like it says Naton right here. Owa Naton. Look, it's right here. Owa Naton. So even this is accurate. Of course it is. Wow. So this is what it actually looks like right here. That is crazy. Wow, that is crazy. Okay. Oh, sorry, you can't see it. Sorry. Okay, here you go. This is what it looks like. You see at the bottom right here? Owanaton right here. It looks like there's a few other letters ahead of it. So I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm getting used to OBS. This is the first time I'm using OBS to record. That's why I'm able to go from between different windows. I'm probably going to start using OBS to record everything from this point forward. So thank you for your patience. But here you go. Isn't that crazy? This is one of the original warning signs. I find that crazy. Okay, let's go back to the temple and let me keep reading. Okay, so that's what it says. No Gentile shall enter inward of the partition and barrier surrounding the temple, and whosoever is caught shall be responsible to himself for his subsequent death. Okay, court of the women is the next thing. So why don't we just head over there? Let's go through this gate, because I think this is the gate that you're supposed to go through. No, that doesn't go to the court of the women. That goes to the court of the priests and the court of Israel, the court of the Israelites or whatever. Okay, so here's the court of the women. Okay, let's go ahead and read about it. Through the balustrade and up a level from the court of the Gentiles is the court of the women, the easternmost portion of the temple proper, where Israelites, both men and women, are permitted to enter. The main gate into the women's court was called the Beautiful Gate because of its rich decoration. At this gate, Peter and John, on their way to the temple, on their way to temple worship, stopped to hear the petition of a lame man. Peter healed the man who then joined them in the temple, walking and leaping and praising God. Okay, so the Beautiful Gate must be... I'm surprised he didn't say where it was, but I'm guessing it's maybe this one, because this seems like it's the main gate. At least the doors are really nice. It looks like they have gold on them. Okay. A fortified inner wall with towers, gates, and porticos surrounded this court. Against the walls inside the porticos were chests for charitable contributions. This is likely the place called the quote-unquote treasury, where the widow cast her mites. Okay, so you come in here to the court of the women, and then here's the porticos with the columns. And I read about these things right here. We're about to read about that. Okay, the court itself was a large space, nearly 200 feet square. Well, I'll just tell you right now, this thing right here, this is like where you would put the money. See that? See how you can put stuff in this? Okay. In the four corners were chambers that served various functions. One eastern chamber served the Nazarites. That's weird. So the eastern chambers, okay, so let's go to the middle here. So you see here's one chamber right here in that corner. Here's one right here. You look you look east, and these are the two eastern chambers, and one of them served the Nazarites. Those who had made special vows could prepare sacrifices there. I don't know much about Nazarites. We all know that Christ was a Nazarite. I want to know more about it. I'm going to have to probably do a video about that. The other eastern chamber was used for storing wood. One western chamber was used for, so one of these for the Nazarites, one of these for storing wood, and then on the west side, it's saying one western chamber was used for storing olive oil. The other was a private ritual bath for purification of lepers. So oil and lepers. For such like large areas, I can't believe that that's what they're used for. Because you wouldn't need that big of a room or a chamber to store oil, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm no expert on ancient oil storage, but that seems pretty large. And it kind of surprises me that they have a separate chamber for Nazarites. I mean, how many were there that they get their own chamber? But okay, that's the way it worked. Okay, so wood, Nazarites, lepers, and olive oil. Okay, it's fine. It was perhaps this court of the women that Joseph and Mary brought the infant Jesus 5 to 6 weeks, 40 days after his birth, so that he, as a firstborn, could be redeemed, and so that Mary could be ceremonially cleansed. Yeah, and we were just reading about that when we clicked on this thing right here, and has the picture of Mary and Joseph and Jesus right there. So, right, I guess in this area, like at the steps, because that's where, yeah, this thing is like right here at the steps. Okay. Here, Jesus later taught during the Feast of Tabernacles and bore witness of his own divinity, dealt mercifully with the woman taken in adultery. Oh, it was here? I never pictured it there. dealt mercifully with the woman taken in adultery. That's the story where the rabbis brought her to him and said that she should be stoned. Is that the story that they're talking about? It was here, somewhere here in the court of the women. Okay, all right. Proclaimed himself to be the light of the world, the Messiah, and bore testimony that he was the God of Abraham. In this court, angry Jews again tried to stone him. As angry as they were, I can't believe that they would try and do that here in the temple courts. But okay, let's see. The court of the men of Israel and the court of the priests. Beyond the women's court, 15 curved steps led west upward toward the Nicanor gate. So we're talking about these steps right here and this gate, which is really quite tall. Those are really, really big doors. Nicanor was a wealthy Jew from Alexandria, Egypt, who donated the ornate doors of the gate. This door opened into the innermost court of the temple, which was actually a double court. The first was the court of the men of Israel. Next to it was the court of the priests. Only priests and other authorized persons could enter this latter court. Along the southern side of this court was the chamber of hewn stone. Well, first let's go in here. So I'm still a little bit confused where the court of the men of Israel is. I would think that because it looks like this is like some kind of like partition right here, as though if you're coming in here, you're not supposed to pass this wall, right? Because you have steps right here, 1, 2 steps, and then there's kind of like a wall. So I would imagine, based on lack of information, that maybe this would be the court of the men of Israel as they come to present sacrifices. And then up there would be the court of the priests, where you have, well, it says this is the court of the priest over here on the north side. And you can see this is where, killing the animals would happen. And then over on this side, that's the altar. Okay, so along the southern side of this court was the chamber of hewn stone where the Sanhedrin met. Okay, so the south side is over here. Here's a room. So maybe it's talking about in one of these rooms. It's a big room. Let's see if there's any other. That's a gate. That's a gate. Let's see. Sorry, it's hard to navigate. That's a gate. That's a gate. And that's a gate. And that's a gate. So it must be talking about over here that the Sanhedrin walked right past it. Stop. Oh my gosh. Over here. Okay. It must be talking about this room right here. Along the southern side of this court was the chamber of hewn stone where the Sanhedrin met. Stephen was transfigured before the Sanhedrin here. Okay, so this is where the story of Stephen happened. Remember when he saw Christ on the right hand of God? Okay, so Stephen was transfigured before the Sanhedrin here, and here Paul bore witness to the Sadducees and Pharisees. Along the northern side of this court was the chamber of the hearth, where priests on duty could spend their nights. Oh, okay, so it's not like directly across from there. Let's see, that's a gate. Looks like that might be it right there, if I could get around these benches. No, that's a gate. How about here? Nope, that's a gate. Also a gate. Gate. And maybe this is it. Because it's a similar looking room. It does go through to the outside, but it's not just simply a gate. So I guess this is probably what it's talking about. Along the northern side of this court was the chamber of the hearth, where priests on duty could spend their nights. So maybe they had like cots or stuff like that set up in here. Within this inner court were the place of slaughtering in the giant brass wash basin, the laver, or the laver. So yeah, we already saw that. Here's where the killing happens right there. There's the laver. Supported on the backs of 12 lions. It doesn't look like it. Unless they just didn't do that part. It doesn't look like there's any lions that are part of this. Okay. Let's see. For all the water needs of the Temple Mount, millions of gallons of water were brought in from Solomon's pools south of Bethlehem and stored in a connected series of rock-cut reservoirs. Near the laver stood the great horned altar of sacrifice, or altar of burnt offering. And yeah, it is quite large. Now, we know that they've created the altar for the third temple, but it's like a portable altar where they can like hurry and assemble it, I guess, or move it to up here. But here's the altar. Let's go down here. I'm sure it smelt horribly over here. And I think that was actually used as like a kind of like a symbol. The fact that out here you smell the smells of sacrifice and stuff, but you come inside the holy place or the sanctuary and it smells good in here because you have the incense. And so anyway, I can't remember exactly where I heard that, but let's come back out here. Okay, so near the laver stood the great horned altar of sacrifice, or altar of burnt offering. It measured 40 feet by 40 feet by 15 feet high. Some believe that the huge rock inside the Dome of the Rock, which now measures approximately 40 feet by 50 feet by 7 feet high, once formed the base of the altar of sacrifice. That's interesting. So the Dome of the Rock, you know, we all know what that is. Let's go back over here. Let's do a search. Dome of the Rock. Let's go to Wikipedia. So this is over a rock where they believe that Muhammad ascended to heaven. I wonder if there's a picture of the rock. Yeah, here it is right here. So it's a black and white picture, but I guess they're thinking that this could have been the altar after it was destroyed, the base of the altar. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so it is clear that King David purchased the rock in order to build an altar to the Lord. The altar was made of whitewashed, unhewn stone. A ramp 48 feet long and 24 feet wide led to it from the south. The altar stood off center in the court so that the priest sacrificing the red heifer across the valley on the Mount of Olives could see straight into the giant entryway of the holy sanctuary, which stood 66 feet high and 33 feet wide. Oh, okay. So, So if they're, and I don't know why they don't have the gate here, but it seems like you should be able to see all the way through these gates to the Mount of Olives, where they would be doing the sacrifice, and then they could see all the way through here to right here. So, and that's why this is off center according to what we just read. Okay. the holy place. 12 additional steps beyond the court of the priest led to the sanctuary or holy place. It was built on precisely the same site and to the exact dimensions as Solomon's temple. Okay, we better go in there. Okay, so here is the entrance to the holy place. Go inside. Okay. As was the case in Solomon's temple, the two columns in front of the holy place were named Jachin or Jachin and Boaz. Okay, all right. So we were talking about that earlier. Let's come back out here. So yeah, these even though there's like 4 here, I'm guessing it's talking about these two, the ones closest to the entryway. Because if you come over here and turn around, it's either these inner ones, which I think it is the inner ones, or it's these outer ones. But in both cases, there's 4. So I don't really know what to believe, but my best guess is it's talking about these two. Okay, so as was the case in Solomon's temple, the 2 columns in front of the holy place were named Jachin and Boaz, meaning he will establish, and in him is strength. The sanctuary itself was made of marble. I love marble, by the way. It's one of my favorite things. Now, this does not look like marble, but okay. It was more than 150 feet high. Today's Dome of the Rock reaches a height of over just 100 feet. Oh my gosh. So it's even higher than that. And was stopped by golden spikes to discourage birds from landing on it and tarnishing the stone. I've always wondered about that. I always wondered why it had that appearance. Let's come out here. Let's go to this point of view. So you see right here, these like pointy things right here. I think that's what it's talking about. I thought that was just part of the, the architecture, the decoration of the temple, but it looks like it was to serve a purpose, to keep birds from, pooping over here. So, okay, let's go back in. Let's go all the way over there. Okay. Inside the holy place was the veil leading to the most sacred chamber, the Holy of Holies. In this chamber, the angel Gabriel appeared to Zacharias to announce the impending birth of John the Baptist. This is where the veil hung that was torn from top to bottom at the death of Jesus. Thus, the temple area consisted of a series of rising platforms. From the court of the Gentiles, one ascended stairs to the court of the women. From there, one ascended 15 curved stairs. It's taking a long time. Here's the 15 stairs right here. Curved stairs, possibly singing the 15 Psalms of Ascent, to the court of men of Israel and the court of the priests. Finally, one made another ascent of 12 steps to the holy place itself. Truly, quote, Jesus went up into the temple. There's that. Okay, stop. Okay. The 3 courtyards surrounding the holiest place where the divine presence could be manifest may be compared to the 3 degrees of glory: telestial, terrestrial, and celestial. The 3 courtyards surrounding the holiest place. Oh, okay. Yeah. So like the courtyard of the women would be like the telestial. The courtyard of the Israelites, the men of Israel would be like the terrestrial, along with like the court of the priests. And then no. Okay, the 3 courtyards surrounding the holiest place where the divine presence could be manifest. Okay, it was always my understanding that this right here, the holy place, this is kind of like represented like the terrestrial, and then in there would represent the celestial, and then out here the telestial. But I don't think that's what he's saying. Okay, let's come back out here. Let's go to this point of view. So maybe he's saying terrestrial right here, and then telestial here. I don't know. The 3 courtyards surrounding the holiest place where the divine presence could be manifest may be compared to the 3 degrees of glory: telestial, terrestrial, and celestial. It is not enough to progress into the 3rd courtyard or heaven to receive the fullness of God's glory. One must actually enter into the highest degree of that realm to symbolically enter into God's presence and be exalted. One of the Psalms of Ascent says, quote, "I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. Our feet shall stand within thy gates, O Jerusalem. Whither the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, unto the testimony of Israel. Give thanks unto the name of the Lord. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. They shall prosper that love thee. Because of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek thy good." And then that's the end of the article. Now, I'll probably just end it here. Maybe we'll do a little bit more and explore some of the other things, because there's other stuff to look at, but I think that was pretty good for right now. Hope you enjoyed it. I would encourage you to do this yourself. Go download the app or get it for your desktop and play around with it. I'm gonna put the links for everything that we've covered in the description below, so you'll know where to find this and all the information related to it. Yeah, and I'll just end it there. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. Also make sure to share this, and I'll talk to you guys later.